Ever wondered what puts the beef in a burger? The world has 1.4 billion cows, and this is their story. The tale of a mighty, meaty beast and a unique relationship with us. From powerful, cunning and social wild beasts, humans harnessed the best, building the ultimate cow. But although we shaped their history, cattle are still shaping ours. Alone on a vast North American prairie, one of the greatest icons of the wild is born. The birth of a bull. She's carried him for 9 months. Many challenges lie ahead as he gets to know his vast new home and the rules of life in the cattle club. On the other side of the world, his cousin's born to a very different nursery. Concerned faces watch his arrival. He's the result of a 10,500-year human-animal partnership that has made the cow one of the most influential and widespread creatures on Earth. The secret of this success lies in the wild. A female bison's under siege. On the North American prairie, a pack of wolves has singled her out. But she's not about to give up without a fight. The rest of her herd's nearby. Her best bet is safety in numbers. Shoulder to shoulder, the herd's impenetrable to the wolves. Back with the herd, the female's safe. The herd moves off as one. Fortunately, our mother's solitude has gone unnoticed. The little bull is unmolested and slowly staggers to his feet. He's witnessed his first attack. More challenges await. The world over, young cattle face very different fortunes. There's a rosy future for this Highland calf. This shaggy breed of domestic cattle thrives in the cold Scottish mountains. This small herd enjoys a close relationship with their owner. He'll watch over and protect his charges, like members of his own family. There have been many twists and turns in the relationship between humans and cattle. Cows have ended up in the most unlikely of places. Under the great pyramids of ancient Egypt lie huge tombs, seemingly fit only for kings. But they contain the preserved bodies of bulls. Placed alongside the bodies of royalty, the bulls were clearly held with esteem. The Egyptians believed that the world began when a sacred cow, Emet Waret, rose from the waters of creation, giving birth to the sun. Where she placed her feet, earth was formed. For Egyptians, cows were the cornerstones of life itself. Cows may have been the first form of wealth. Livestock equaled status. Even the name cattle is derived from the word capital. Throughout history and across the world, the cattle family is given special place in religion and ceremony. They're revered for beauty, thanked as providers, and used in sport. Many ancient cultures pitted the might of the bull against man and beast. Blood sports are largely a thing of the past, banned across the world for their cruelty, but bullfighting continues in a few parts of Spain. A bull, picked from the herd for his beauty, strength, and his fiery temper, is tormented and stabbed, putting the contestants at risk of his deadly horns in the name of entertainment. It's a dramatic and timeless spectacle, but one that never ends well for the bull. Ultimately, he's put to death by the matador's sword. Once an important tradition, the brutal practice is losing popularity and may soon become a thing of the past. The Spanish bull's fighting spirit can be traced back to their wild cousins and doesn't always result in disaster. Few places offer nature in the raw like the Great Plains of East Africa. Cape buffalo and lions. Not a good combination. In most movies, the outcome's predictable. Lions dining out on steak. But this time, it's the cows doing the stakeout. They don't want enemies on their turf. Playing it cool, the lion stands his ground. But he's not as intimidating as he thinks. Never turn your back on a loaded bull. Most people think burgers when they think beef, but they should be thinking cunning, strength, and solidarity. Cattle stick together. And this is one of the traits that made them appeal to humans. They stick together in a herd, making them easier to control. If people need to move on, they can take the cattle with them or transfer the herd to fresh pasture. Naturally, herds are led by dominant females, and the place of each animal in the hierarchy is passed from mother to calf. Herding behavior starts from childhood, when calves make friends that they'll keep for life. But farmers have learned to direct the lead animal, choosing the path for them, even if it means crossing water. The need to be constantly on the move is a trait cows share with their wild cousins. But for the all-American plains bison, that means contending with river crossings. With migration in their blood, bison roam thousands of kilometers every year. Nothing stands in their way: predators, fences, or rivers. The young bull's now strong on his legs. All wild cattle must be ready to run within hours of birth to keep up with the herd, as it moves 20 kilometers a day to find fresh grazing. The racing current snatches him from his mother. By the time she realizes, he's long gone. The herd can't afford to wait for every single individual. They must press on in their mission. The mother's torn. She wants to search for her calf, but her instincts tell her not to leave the safety of the herd. She doesn't know that her little one's been washed ashore downriver. He's free from the deadly current, but his troubles have barely begun. A lone wolf thinks he's spotted easy prey. But the spirit of the bull is strong in this little one. He's not going down without a fight. Like bison, wolves like to live in groups. And some packs specialize in bringing down huge bison. But this is a youngster looking for new territory. He lacks experience or pack members to back him up. Perhaps the calf senses his weakness and does his best to hold him off. The wolf hears something. An angry mother. It's 2 against 1, and when one opponent weighs nearly half a ton, it's hardly a fair fight. The mother checks his wounds. The calf's been alone, cold, wet and frightened for hours. But they can't stay here too long. Other wolves will notice. They must catch up with the herd. The calf's clearly thrilled to be back where he belongs. American bison, known locally as buffalo, are the heaviest inhabitants of the continent. They once roamed in vast herds, millions strong. And their sheer volume had a profound effect on the health of the entire ecosystem around them. Their heavy cropping of grass created opportunities for wildflowers, insects and ground-nesting birds. Their churning hooves helped seeds to germinate, and their dung fertilized the plains. Even today as they walk, their broad feet kick up tons of insects, and birds, like the Swainson's hawk, follow the herd to cash in. This hungry bird instinct translates to domestic cows. The grazing of wild cattle keeps grasslands healthy, and their dung fertilizes the soil, supporting a vast array of wildlife. And yet, despite their importance, several bovine heroes have been perilously close to extinction. Thousands of European bison, or wisent, once roamed from the Pyrenees to the Caucasus. But they were heavily hunted, and their forests were cleared for farming. In the early 1900s, they became extinct in the wild, but a handful of individuals remained in captivity. In the middle of the last century, efforts were made to re-establish the wild herds. A few thousand have been successfully reared. Now, small herds have been established throughout their old range, and they're carefully monitored and looked after. Forest guards watch the herds to make sure none are poached. They even offer some extra food to prevent starvation during winter. It's not always clear whether the bison are grateful. In legend, they're described as the fearsome beasts of the forest, and despite persecution, their aggressive nature's going strong. Bison weren't the only fiery European cattle given a hard time by humans. They once shared their forests with an even bigger load of bull. The giant megafauna of Europe once played a vital role in controlling plant growth through their grazing. By nipping at saplings, they could maintain meadows and create open forest glens. Their actions created a more diverse wildlife community. And among those natural landscapers, a huge wild ox known as the aurochs. This mighty member of the family roamed Europe, North Africa, and Asia. Their imposing form, 1.5 tons of muscle, could tower nearly 2 meters at the shoulder. Topped with 80-centimeter curved horns. The females were rusty brown, but as the males matured, they turned regal black with a pale stripe along the back. They were magnificent and intimidating, a good source of meat, but also a sporting challenge to early hunters. As the great beasts became rarer, the right to hunt them was reserved for nobility. History records the last auroch. She died in Poland in 1627. Her kind left a lasting impression. From the first days of humanity, wild cattle adorned the caves of Europe. The great beasts captured human imagination, but it wasn't enough to save them. But while aurochs are gone, their genes live on. Around 10,500 years ago, humans, dabbling with farming for the first time, probably took aurochs calves from the wild and raised them. They became livestock and were slowly domesticated. Cows became one of the most influential animals in the development of human societies. One cow accolade is that, along with humans, it was one of the first animals to have its genome mapped. The recent genetics work revealed that all the world's cattle originated in the Middle East, from a herd of less than 80 individuals. These big, powerful creatures were useful. Firstly, as a source of meat, and then leather for clothing. But this was just the beginning. Humans soon learned that if you had a cow in calf, there was milk on tap. Only 30% of the world's human population has a natural ability to digest milk, but other cultures learned to turn it to butter, yogurt, or cheese. Cheese has been made for at least 6,000 years, turning milk into a long-lasting food source that's easy to digest, easy to transport, and easy to store. Refining over eons has resulted in hundreds of varieties, with 20 million tons being churned out each year around the world. With each successive generation of increasingly useful cows, the animals became more placid and easier to work with. It wasn't long until the beefy bovines were employed for their muscle. Ploughing with cattle like this might date back 5,000 years. As beasts of burden, cows go by another name, oxen. They're not as fast as horses, but they're more robust and can pull harder for longer. They can shift cargo 3 times their own body weight. As farming practices grew, so did the usefulness of cattle. The wild beast of the forest was tamed, and while its ancestors were being wiped out, cows were being mass-produced and shipped around the world. What started out as families, smallholders with a herd on their land, soon evolved into more specialized farming, with modified buildings and high-protein feeds. To reach growing demands, more intensive farming methods were needed. The start of beef and dairy production lines. Today, around 3.5 million tons of beef is produced every year. It's not surprising that almost every town and city has at its heart an active or historic cattle market. There are constant refinements of breeds to produce more milk, meat, or resilience. Pedigrees change hands for a lot of money. Breeding means tapping into the reproductive behavior of cattle. In the wild, a selection process still takes place. The bulls compete to be the biggest and most impressive, to win female attention. European bison and most wild cattle live in female-led herds of cows and their calves. Young bison bulls are raised by the herd, but once they reach 3 years old, they're kicked out and either live alone or in small male groups. The bulls roam until they're big enough to challenge for leadership of the herd. This youngster's about 4, just going through the motions of territorial marking. So far, they're empty gestures, a trial run, but there are bigger bulls nearby. At age 6, this bull's fully grown. Until he's ready to assert himself, he can only watch the herd from the outside. As the breeding season approaches, he tries to stay close to the females and advertises his presence, urinating, then scraping the ground to stir up the scent, wafting it to the cows. He rubs his head in it, turning himself into a big billboard, a bull banner. He hopes the females will pick up the cues and respond to the pin-up's posturing. All wild cattle experience a rut, a breeding season, when hormones turn placid bulls into sex-crazed beasts ready to fight for mating rights. The hormonal highs and lows are still shared with domestic cattle. Most bulls are kept separate from cows, but on the pastures of southern Spain, fighting bulls roam free. Like the bison, young bulls have been hanging around the fringes of the herd, testing their strength on each other. But one has come of age and is ready to challenge the dominant bull. Many domestic cattle have their horns removed, and this is why. They're serious weapons, designed to go head to head. It's this same fiery temper that's made this breed the one sought out for the arena. And it's all because wild instincts run deep. On the American prairie, the rut is being ramped up. The bulls are mingling with the herd, checking out the ladies to see who might be ready to mate. A cattle market of a different kind. By lapping at their urine, he can detect hormone levels and select the perfect mate. Young bulls are practicing. They won't qualify as serious contenders for a few more seasons, but competition's fierce, so they work to up their game. These 3-year-olds are like rowdy teenagers. The hormones are flowing, but not the brawn to go with it. The big bulls watch from the sidelines. These featherweights are no threat. The young beef won't reach its prime for a few more years. The romping youngsters roused the big bull from his ringside seat. He rolls, sending up smoke signals. A slathering suitor rises to the challenge. A deep bellow means a deep chest. Don't challenge unless you're tough enough. When they do collide, the shock's absorbed by the thick mat of hair on their heads. But with muscle power and sharp horns, fights can get out of hand. The interloper has the good sense to back down. The fiery tempers of bulls have not gone unnoticed by human admirers. This beefy sumo wrestling's a Japanese sport that celebrates the prowess of the bull. A coach encourages his contestant and watches closely to make sure his champion isn't injured. As the bulls tire, they're carefully separated before any blood's shed. These events have been going on for hundreds of years. The huge bulls are local heroes, pampered by their owners. They can expect long and luxurious lives as a reward for their performance. At the other end of the spectrum, imposing-looking Highland cattle are popular for their gentle nature, but especially because they can tolerate the cold, wet conditions of Scotland.
Come on.
Guard hairs on their double-layered coat can reach 35 centimeters, helping rain roll off, leaving cozy fluff warm underneath. Because of the warm coat, they don't need thick layers of fat. Their meat has 38% less fat than other beef cattle.
You just had it for just now.
Despite all their strength and selected attributes, cattle are domesticated and require a lot of human intervention. These Hungarian grey cattle are watched over at all times. They're a hardy, long-living and ancient breed. They must be constantly moved from place to place to avoid overgrazing. Instead of fencing them in, the farmers stay with them. They can help deliver calves and check the way is safe. River crossings are traumatic for little cattle. But the herder located the shallowest, easiest route and stays on hand to help if they get stuck. Having human carers can also help if the herd runs into trouble with predators. Especially on the vast wetlands of South America. The hump-backed zebu cattle, like these Brahman, originated in Asia, but here they're ranched on South America's pampas, where they face a new threat. A jaguar watches the herds, looking for young or injured animals that might make easy prey. At close to 100 kilos, this deadly cat's the biggest predator on the continent. Because of their deadly neighbors, the cows need round-the-clock supervision. Cattle encroach on wildlife habitat, replacing natural prey. To the powerful big cat, they represent an easy meal. Local cowboys must frequently catch young cattle to tend to their wounds. Jaguars' claws and teeth do a lot of damage, and in the tropics the gashes are prone to infection. Without human intervention, they'd be doomed. To protect farm animals around the world, farmers traditionally have a bad relationship with predators. They often operate a shoot-on-sight policy to stop wild animals from taking their livestock. There are a few countries that work hard to encourage people and wildlife to coexist. The jaguar is protected by law, and the farmers will be given cash compensation for any animals lost to predators. Not all cattle need protection. Some are very capable of taking care of themselves. A lioness on the prowl. Before she hunts, she stashes her cubs safely in some thick vegetation. She thinks she's unseen. She spots a straggler. But there's buffalo backup. The lioness loses out, but in more ways than she realized. While she was busy, the rest of the herds picked up the family's scent. Buffalo are smart enough to know baby lions are enemies in the making. They take action now to avoid danger in the future. She calls to her cubs. No answer. She can smell that buffalo have entered the bush. She finds the first cub. Then the second, trampled into the mud. Finally, her calls are answered. 2 survivors. Perhaps these 2 will grow up with a healthy respect for buffalo. Don't underestimate the brains or brawn of bovines. Cattle are tough, but they're tailor-made to certain habitats. Because cattle have been transplanted all over the world, they sometimes need help coping with the elements. As northern autumn closes in, farmers prepare winter shelters. And offer seasonal treats. By the first frosts, many cows are locked away, shielded from the cold. From now on, their dietary requirements will be the responsibility of the farmer. Of course, there's no such luxury for their wild cousins. The aurochs was a hardy animal, evolved to cope with harsh conditions. Today it's gone, but selective breeding of ancient domestic cattle in 1920s Germany created a look-alike, the Heck cattle. It's not as big, tough, or aggressive, but it gives us some idea of what we've lost. The aurochs waited out European winters. And they aren't the only ones. European bison must endure temperatures lower than -50 degrees Celsius. Their thick, shaggy coats protect them from the snow, and broad heads can shovel it aside to help them find buried food. But there are more immediate threats they must face. The herd's being followed. Wolves are opportunists. They watch the herd, looking for individuals suffering from the hardships of winter. Weakened, they should be easier to take down. Their scent carries in the air. But the herd doesn't want to waste energy moving unless they have to. The bison sense their approach and head for cover. the wolves follow them in. But winter hasn't dampened this bull's spirits. The wolves get the message. Though both bison and wolves have disappeared from many areas, this is an ancient relationship, a natural cycle of predators and prey. Wolves now share a different relationship with cattle. Domestication on both sides means humans can employ dogs to control and guard their herds. The dogs help move them on to find areas with less snow. Eventually, winter comes to an end. Summer will return to the plains. Bringing a new year of growth for our young All-American hero. He's got through the worst part. Anyone that can stand up to a Yellowstone winter is a winner. And for domestic cows confined to winter cattle sheds, the long wait is finally over. The result? Some happy cows. Glad to be free and full of cow curiosity like their ancestors, they're eager to explore their new surroundings. Without these glorious, huge, powerful and social creatures, we wouldn't have milk, cheese, yogurt, beef burgers, shoes. And it's all thanks to a long legacy. Without it, we wouldn't have their positive enriching and shaping of grasslands. They've become icons of the countryside. Without cattle, we'd miss those big, gentle brown eyes. We clearly love cows. There are 1.4 billion of them. That's a big load of bull.